Okay, so let's talk about getting serious about development, which is the next area of discussion here. It's it's not something you can take lightly, right, John?
No, I mean, player development is a long-term process, and it should be started as early as possible, like we keep mentioning, if you're taking your sport seriously, right? So, starting early, grade 8, going into high school is the main focus for wanting to play college sports. So starting early.
Yeah. So I think people will ask the question to me often, and I see it around is, people take their sport seriously at different times. I can talk about my experience, which is, I played ice hockey, baseball, soccer, tennis, all competitively, and especially baseball and hockey. But then, I dropped those around grade 9, going into grade 10. And I had to make the decision for a couple reasons. One is like the amount of time that it obviously takes. Everyone knows if they play those sports, the travel is intense. You know all about hockey, John. You did it for so long. Mm-hmm. So the travel's intense. You can't possibly, put all your energy and efforts towards one thing and really get the maximum development, out of your game if you don't start focusing somewhere, especially if you want to get to the college level. And, this is back in the 90s, right? So like now you're talking about in early 2000s, and now you're talking about 2020, and, players are specializing and they're spending more time, and it's just the market. It's the reality. There's so much more in competition that I believe players even need to start earlier and, start specializing. And obviously that doesn't mean you can't play other sports, because I still played those other sports recreationally in leagues and whatever I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it on a competitive aspect. And still I was kind of late in some regards. So, if a kid loves their sport, if for parents that are listening, like the kid loves the sport, they want to be out there all day long, then, they're serious about it. And you have to take it seriously, because you never know what's going to happen. So you have two choices. You can either start taking it seriously from the beginning, or you can take it serious later on. And, but taking it seriously from the beginning and then the kid not wanting to do it anymore, that's okay. Just you drop it at that point.
Yeah, if you know your path, right? So for me, I was, how big I was in hockey and, playing competitive hockey at the highest level. And then, I took up tennis at a later age, but I kind of found my path, probably like around grade 10, like you're saying as well, which, was a little late, but again, the recruiting process was different back then. I kind of just found my path and I chose tennis, and I kind of knew like I was able to, excel in tennis. Maybe my tennis game wasn't as strong 2 years before, and, I was, MVP hockey player, but then, after a couple of years, I continued to play tennis, continued to train. And then, I saw where my level was, and I knew that, tennis was going to help me get into college and play at a higher level. Now, you should never, you always need to maximize your development. Okay. Also at an earlier age, always aim for the stars. College sports are competitive, so daily training and competition is of the highest quality. So you always have to, again, if you know that you're going to stick to a certain sport, you're trying to get to the college level, you just got to keep, going at it and just, trying to reach the highest level. But it takes a lot of time and effort, training, competition, for all that to be a success.
Yeah, I think people just think too deeply about the seriousness. So like you said, you found your way, grade 10, similar to me. I found my way around that time. We played other sports. We didn't drop the other sports completely. I dropped the competitive play, being on some of those higher travel teams, but right. It's because you can't do it all, right? Like, I mean, that was just a reality of my situation. And so that was tough decisions to make and
plus you're in school,
like that.
Right?
But yeah, but I think I took all sports personally serious from day one, from when I did it, because I just loved sports. Like I remember when I first started my dad put me in skating at age 3. I won my first skating badge at the age of 3. I took it seriously, I think, even as a kid, because I loved it, right? I just absolutely loved it. And I did everything I could with sports. And my parents recognized that. And when they saw that I just didn't want to leave the soccer field or the hockey, games, and I was super excited, I couldn't even sleep. I mean, everything about my life was sports, sports, sports. Even the video games that I'm playing, I only wanted sports games. I only wanted to watch sports on TV. So it's like, if that's how the kid is, then, they're serious about it, then you got to take it seriously.
Well, let me ask you this. I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later or soon, but did you know, you were so involved in all your sports, you might have had a favorite sport, but did you know around going into high school, kind of where your sport might be able to take you, like after high school, like college, pro, semi-pro, or did you have any of that in mind, or you were just, going along with the punches?
Yeah, at around like 12 years old for me, I told my parents that I wanted to go play college sports.
Okay.
And it was basically for me, like I used to go to California all the time to visit my cousins, and I would go, and my cousin actually was being coached at the time. They had a tennis court at their house. And so a girl from the UCLA team used to come and play with them, and then I would go play, and she's like, "Oh, you're pretty good." And we'd have a lot of fun. And she'd tell me about her experience as a player, as well as we would go to some football games and different things. So I got a glimpse of all of that. And I thought, because I love sports, like I said, I was always about sports. I'm like, I got to be an athlete here. And then around 15, grade 9, grade 10, I started to realize, okay, I want to be a college tennis player. And it's funny because even in my going away party, a surprise party that my parents and sisters threw for me, that's what I think it was my mom wrote in the card. I still have it. I got to find it. But someone wrote in there saying, this was your dream. This is what you wanted to do. And I'm so happy and proud that, it could happen. And I even wrote it in an article. There's an article that I had in the summer of grade 9 going into grade 10, where I won some big tournaments that I had someone interview me. And the guy said, well, what do you want to do? And I wrote, I want to play college tennis. That is my goal. That's my dream. And so, and I think it happens differently for everybody, right? Like some people might not even know till senior year. But my point was really, whether you know it or you don't, if you love what you're doing at the moment, take it seriously, because it doesn't hurt you to not. Don't say, I'll take it seriously when this happens. And I feel like a lot of parents give those excuses to, too often. It's like, oh, well, we're trying to figure out, I'm not sure. I don't want to invest this. I don't want to do that. No one's asking you to go and invest, $1 million into, someone's development. But I'm saying take it seriously, because even if you go out and, throw the ball around with your friend and you're working on pitching, or you're working on, if you're a quarterback and you're working on accuracy, whatever it is, like go in there with the mindset that, like you said, is I'm going to give it my all.
Well, taking it serious also, it opens up more opportunities, right? So just because you might know, what level you are at for certain schools, you should never stop trying to get to the next level, because your scholarship options will always open up. So, you might be in grade 11 or 12, and, you might just think you're going to plateau yourself and be like, okay, I know I can get into like these 5 schools that I'm interested in. So, might not take it as serious anymore. You already think you can get in there. But, if you keep developing your game, no matter what sport, you just never know. You can just jump from that one level to the next level, whether it's, being a D2 player right into being a D1 player, or, being that 3-star, making that leap to being a 4-star, close to a 5. And then, your schools can just open up, your opportunities can open up, and, you'll have more options.
Yeah, I think that it comes down to the desire, of that athlete. How badly do they want it? And, if you look at the best athletes in the world, the ones that are, always in front of our faces, you look at the Kobe Bryants and the LeBron James and the Jordans, because we saw that documentary recently.
Right.
If people haven't watched, that, then, I think it's, you start seeing, even Tiger Woods, Federer, all these guys, like in different sports, you just realize how badly they want it and how they never stop developing their skills. And that even when they're won multiple titles and championships and Super Bowls and whatever it is, they're hungry for more because they know that someone's knocking on their door. At the same time, it doesn't matter how far someone is behind them. They just want to keep being the best athlete they can be and reaching new heights and reaching new, achievements. They don't get complacent, and they are happy with to do it. They're willing to do it. So you're right. I mean, and I have to make the point, because this is no filter, no BS, is there are people like, and I'll give my example where I never wanted to be a pro tennis player.
Right.
I don't know why. I think, if I'm being truthful to myself, I think it's because I didn't love tennis the way I loved soccer, baseball, and ice hockey. And I'll be honest about that. I love all sports so much that I could play tennis, but those were my three sports that I did like more than tennis. But I was happy achieving. I worked hard, but I was not, I was self-aware to know that I wasn't trying to get to, I wanted to get to a good level. I really worked hard, but it wasn't the pro, route for me.
Right.
So there was a point where I wasn't going to sacrifice my social life or certain experiences in high school and college for my sports. While you watch other athletes do that and talk about how they didn't have a social life, that they never went to their prom, that they didn't do certain things. And that, what I'm trying to say is that's all okay.
Right.
But there is a certain level you need to get to make the college goal a reality. That was something I was very self-aware about. And I definitely put in the work to get there.
Well, same here. I mean, at the time when I was getting, thinking about, I'm going to go play college tennis myself, during that summer before my junior year, I don't think I had a life, actually. I was on the tennis courts from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. because I kind of knew what level.
I was sacrificed a ton too. I just meant, it comes in variations.
Yeah. So I lived at the tennis courts actually that summer, but it actually, my level just skipped to, potentially maybe looking at some options to, okay, yeah, you're definitely college tennis material, and you can go after those scholarships, and you still have time too. So
yeah, I mean, we weren't trying to go play for tennis at Stanford, which was probably the top team at the time, or one of the top teams, because we were okay, we're not Stanford. And nor did I really, sure, I would have loved to play for Stanford, but nor did I really expect that or think that based on what I was doing with it. But, it doesn't, I think the message that I want to make clear is that it's not that, I definitely took it serious too. I lived at the courts in the summers as well, but there are some people that there's those slight differences where they skip the prom, they skip certain activities, they don't do anything on the weekends. And that's maybe the kid that wants to be the next, in our sport, Roger Federer, the next, Peyton Manning or whatever it is. It's just, it's serious and there's development, but you have to at least understand that. So I want to bring one more point about this topic up that I believe for parents is extremely important. And that's, it's for parents and athletes. Don't blame your coach on your development, because they are not in charge. They are not you. You have your own dreams. You have your own, you're your own person. Okay. You determine how hard or not hard you want to work. You are the only one that truly knows how much effort you put in, and as you gave it your all every day. And if you were focused, and if you were disciplined, and if you went home and you ate healthy and you did all the right stuff, you slept, and you took care of yourself. And I think a lot of people start blaming their coaches, and parents start blaming coaches as well because of their development. They're expecting them to develop their game for them, when in reality, they're there to guide them and coach them. They're not there to, they can bring a horse to the water, but you can't force them to drink. And the other aspect of this, don't blame your coach, and development on the parent side is that, ultimately you're the CEO, you're the operations person of your child. You need to look at the place where they're going to train. You're as a family need to, and you could do this with coach as well, put some short and long-term goals in place. The child needs to go out there and try to achieve them, and the parent needs to be the project manager, basically saying, okay, were we able to get these results?
Right.
Why or why not? Did you do what you were supposed to do? Did the coach do what they were supposed to do? Did I, as a parent, do what I needed to do? And so if that didn't happen, then we need to adjust and make improvements and go on. And we need to assess that very often, not waiting 6 months, 1 year and saying, oh, well, we didn't get where we wanted to get, or we didn't even make the right strides to get there. Because when you do that, then you start blaming others, and then you start getting frustrated, and then you start wondering why you're not getting the opportunities that you believe you should be getting, but it's because you haven't actually broken it down and assessed it. And I think it's the parents' role and their main job to make sure they manage that development. Encourage, don't coach, let the coaches coach. And if they're not doing the right job, then you have to find the right chemistry with the right team and the right people. But you have to make sure that you evaluate it and see the results. And if you do that, then you can hold everyone accountable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
And that's another thing that rarely gets done. And to be honest, I see a lot of parents say, yeah, to me, if I bring it up in a seminar or a speech or in videos like this, and, they don't actually follow through. Like,
right.
I really want parents to understand, like, you have to do this if you want to help your child. My parents did that. My parents definitely were on top of what was happening with my development. They would show up to practice from time to time. They made sure I had the coaches that would help me improve, and they would ask me questions, and we would set goals. And like, hey, like I remember sitting down distinctively with my father and talking about, breaking the top 20, in the Canadian rankings. And that happened in the summer of my, grade 9 going to grade 10 year. And it wasn't just, let's do this. It's like, how? Make sure the coach is on board. And, you don't have to be an expert at all. You don't have to know your sport. In fact, it's better if you don't. My parents knew very little to nothing about any of the sports that I played, especially when it came to playing at the competitive level and the high performance level. But they were just good at making sure things were happening, asking the right questions, making sure everyone was on top of stuff, and explaining to me that if you do X, Y, and Z, you will see improvements. It's no different than, for example, I used to go play piano with my sisters, right? And we'd go to piano classes. Well, my teacher said, Tarek, you got to practice piano half an hour a day. I hated piano, by the way. Sorry, Miss Milan, my old teacher. I loved her. But she was a huge Leafs fan, by the way. So we talk hockey all the time. But I didn't like it, but I knew I needed to do it. My parents would come home and be like, when I would go to do the tests, and sometimes I would barely pass, they'd be like, so how do you expect to pass this test? You don't practice 30 minutes a day. You don't do the homework assignments. You don't, I followed up with your teacher. So how do you expect to make this happen? And then it was kind of like, yeah, you're right. For me, it became a conversation eventually, like, I actually don't like this. That's why I don't do it. But, otherwise, they didn't have to know how to play the piano to manage this process.
Right.
So I just want to hammer that home because, I get a lot of those excuses sometimes. I don't know anything about the sport. You don't need to know one thing about the sport.